Hey guys, I'm back with the second part of our terminal points video. So when I left you, we had gone over the whole entire unit circle, which you should have written down somewhere. And if you don't, go back and watch that video. So by now you should have filled in your whole entire unit circle and things that you need to know in order to be able to find terminal points for any particular uh, angle on your unit circle. You need to know the quadrant that the angle's in, and then you also need to know the radian denominator or its matching quadrant one angle, also called its reference angle. Okay, so we'll talk more about what all that means. So before we get too far into all of these examples, real quick, just a reminder, right? When you have the coordinate plane, okay, quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. In quadrant 1, both your x and your y are positive. In quadrant 2, it's negative and positive. Quadrant 3, both are negative. And in quadrant 4, the x is negative but the y is, or the x is positive but the y is negative. Okay, which can kind of help you when, figuring out where you are and what values you should assign to which angles. So the ones listed over here on the right, okay, if you're following along on the note sheet that was provided, they're kind of horizontal and it says you must memorize the following. These are pretty much your most important. If you can remember these, you can remember any of the unit circle. You can put it together very quickly. So we just went over how to find these, but pi over 3, remember your x value is 1/2 and your y value is the square root of 3 over 2. If ever you forget, just draw a little triangle for yourself. Right, this is 60 degrees, so it's pi over 3. Notice this is the shorter side, and 1/2 is definitely shorter than the square root of 3 over 2. So my x is 1/2, and my y is the square root of 3 over 2. Pi over 4 should be the easiest one. Square root of 2 over 2, square root of 2 over 2. All right, and pi over 6 is just kind of the reverse of pi over 3, so it's going to be the square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2. Those are your first quadrant angles. If you know the first quadrant, you can figure out the rest of the quadrants very simply. Other important points that you should know are definitely when we hit, when you're on, when you're on an axis. So like 0, right, that's at 1, 0. Pi over 2, that's when we're straight up 90 degrees, right? That's 0, 1. Pi, that's when we're all the way over to the left, so negative 1, 0. 3 pi over 2 straight down, so that's 0, negative 1. And then 2 pi, you're back to the beginning at 0, 0. Or not 0, 0, but 1, 0. I apologize. Okay, so then what we can do is we can ask you about any angle. All right, so 5 pi over 3 is in the fourth quadrant. That's something that you'll have to kind of think about, for a moment. You can be like, okay, unit circle, right? Okay, pi over 3 is the same as 10 pi over 6. Yep, that's going to be there. Okay, so once you know what quadrant it is in, you know that the coordinates for that quadrant are positive, negative, right? That's how that quadrant goes. So pi over 3 normally is just 1/2 root 3 over 2, but my x value is going to stay positive and my y value is going to be negative. So it's 1/2 comma negative root 3 over 2. All right, 7 pi over 6, think about where it's at. So 6 pi over 6 would be right here. 7 pi over 6 is right here in the third quadrant. And in the third quadrant, both are negative. And pi over 6 is normally root 3 over 2 comma 1/2. So it's going to be negative root 3 over 2 comma negative 1/2. 5 pi over 4. Okay, so think about where it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's in the third quadrant. So third quadrant. So that means both are negative, and your pi over 4s, I think, are the easiest to remember because the x and the y are the same. All right, so 2 pi over 3, where is that located? That is in the second quadrant. And you could always pause the video, try it by yourself, and then press play whenever you're ready. In the second quadrant, your x is negative, but your y is positive. All right. All right. Now we got our first negative angle. So negative pi over 6. So remember, that's just one tick down here. Okay. So that's in the fourth quadrant. Sorry, I meant to change my color. So fourth quadrant. And in the fourth quadrant, your x is positive, but your y is negative. So it's going to be root 3 over 2, comma negative 1/2. All right. And then there are a few more, and these we've already filled in on our last slide, the memorizing ones. So it's just that repeated again. All right. So negative 3 pi over 4 is going to be in the third quadrant. So both are negative. So negative root 2 over 2, negative root 2 over 2. All right, negative 3 pi over 2. So negative 3 pi over 2 is actually the same thing as pi over 2. If you don't believe me, take a look. So you got negative pi over 2, negative pi, negative 3 pi over 2. Uh, so same thing there. So it's not in a quadrant because this is quadrantal angle. Um, so the coordinates though are 0, 1. All right, same thing with negative pi. Actually, negative pi is the same as positive pi. So it is not in a quadrant, but it is at negative 1, 0. And then 11 pi over 6, you should remember, is right here on your unit circle. So that's in the fourth quadrant. And when you're in the fourth quadrant, your x is positive and your y is negative. So it's going to be square root of 3 over 2, comma negative 1/2. And that is the rest of the terminal points notes.